So the first part of the review is going to be with what is a tort and why we have torts in the first place in society. And to start, we'll start with the definition. And there's a running joke in my household, at least, that whenever I say the word torts, it reminds my significant other of a Hogwarts class because it just sounds funny. And I can't really, I kind of agree because it does sound a little funny. A tort in society is simply a civil wrong that law requires a remedy. And civil, I guess, in a way that I think about civil is when it's everything that's not criminal. And so things that aren't punishable, things that don't deserve blameworthiness, things that are not with malicious mind. I mean, I don't really, that's kind of how I dichotomize it in my head. But in short, I mean, these are the things, if I were to put it practically, that every day people sue people over. You know, things like coffee that was spilled on a woman that was too hot and didn't know so, and that because I was wronged and I am not whole, I'm going to sue you to make myself whole again. And so, to paint a better picture of what a tort is, I think it is worth mentioning why we have it in society. And before going into why, to kind of think about society in its natural state. And I think when you think about a tort, if you think about if we were to not have laws and we were to not have means to redress, right? Oftentimes in our head we think of chaos, and that may or may not be inaccurate depending on your worldview, right? But if, for example, I go outside and there is no authority, there's no legitimate use of force that we concede our acceptance to, and somebody runs over my dog, and they look at me and go, well, that's life, and I have no means to redress besides potentially knocking on his door, right, kicking it down, and then holding some deadly force against his head, right? And in this scenario, it's a him. But to kind of paint that picture, right, I mean, the world would be quite chaotic, and we would be in this kind of Hobbesian hostile state where we are simply defending ourselves from everybody else. And I think, for my understanding, I think when I look at it like that, torts makes a lot of sense of why we have it. And so, of the list, this is one that Professor Miller at Drake Law School provided for me. And I think it's really helpful. The first is, it's a peaceful means. And so, like the example I just gave, right, that is non-peaceful. That is me taking fate into my own hands and going, well, if you're not going to do it, or if you don't give permission for somebody to enforce it, then I'm going to do it myself, and I know you won't listen, so I'm going to put a gun to your head and make my life whole again. And so, a peaceful means in that, well, we all can see that things are going to happen, and that a court or some authority can come in and go, you know what, we're going to arbitrate this. We're going to figure this out, and so that those that are harmed can be hopefully back to close to where they were, and those that did the harm can be brought to kind of face their actions. 2 is general deterrence, and I feel the need to draw on like a criminal law kind of deal, but in a sense, this utilitarian view, that if you know that general actions or conduct that does harm to others will result in a consequence or some kind of detriment to you, then there is a rudimentary economic sense that, well, maybe I shouldn't do it then, right? The next one is going to be to encourage duties, and this one is on the opposite end of deterrence, where we go, well, if we have a system in which there are things that we don't do, there are also things that we encourage that you do. Um, because we all live together, we're all huddled together, and that omission of act can be something that is not necessarily can kind of on its face, omissions of acts don't necessarily sound like they are harmful, but they can be. And so I think in my head, encouraging duties is kind of like an incentivizing, being there for your fellow citizen. 4 is to restore the injured. And so it's one thing to bring the means in, but it's another thing to actually say, you know what, you were harmed, you are not like you were before this incident, and so we're going to try to redress and make yourself whole again. And I think I heard like this, make yourself whole again, from like a Roman term. Not too sure, to be honest. That's what I think it is. But and so typically we will know this as monetary damages. And so, for instance, in that instance where my dog was killed, and it's hard to put a price point on what a dog, what a friend, what a pal means to you. And sometimes the best we can do is say, you know what, we can't really bring your dog back from the dead, but we can give you a good amount of money in hopes that you can be a little bit better off or try to be what you were before. And last is vindication. I guess this is like a nominal win, that even after all this, it's kind of relatable, right? If a harm happens to you, and sometimes it's not about the money, right? Sometimes it's about the principle. It's about making sure that a message is sent and that they know that what they did was not right. And Torts, I think, also fulfills that purpose. Now, on the practical side of this, when we kind of look at where this came from, if you were to view a society where everybody had 20 acres of land and your closest neighbor was, 5 miles down the road, then torts doesn't seem as necessary, right? If you can keep moving west in the frontier and have vast amounts of land and not have to depend on other people, then you're going to have less instances where there's going to be harm. And so it could be possible that you just settle it yourself. But what gave rise to kind of an explosion of torts is industrialization, where all of a sudden masses of people started to live closer and closer together. You had products and goods and services that were provided in which liability or fault, or even an absence of fault, right, resulted in things where we have to settle our issues. And so, for the practical side, I think for this one, an industrial revolution was kind of a big thing that was emphasized, and it makes sense if you really think about it.